After my daughter's tragic death, a 35M inheritance led to an unbelievable twist of betrayal. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The phone call shattered my world. My daughter gone. The words echoed in my mind, like a haunting melody. I'm sorry. They kept ringing. I clutched the receiver, my hands trembling, heart racing. How could this happen? Jessica was vibrant, full of life. She had dreams and plans, a future that now vanished. I could almost hear her laughter in our living room. The way her eyes sparkled when she spoke of her ambitions. It sent a sharp pain through my chest. The news of her death hit me like a lightning bolt, merciless and raw. The funeral was a blur. Faces piled on top of each other. Whispers swirling in the cold air. Friends and family offered their condolences, but I felt alien among them. It was as if they were talking about a stranger. Despair settled over me like a heavy cloak, leaving no room for solace, and then came the twist. Just when I thought nothing could get worse, I received an unexpected letter. A lawyer's letter. Felt electric in my hands. 35 million. An inheritance from a well-to-do benefactor I barely knew. I stared at the numbers, legs weak beneath me. It was as if the universe was mocking my grief. Why would she inherit this money? The questions twisted in my mind. Who was this benefactor? What was their connection to Jessica? It all felt wrong, sticky with secrets. I began to dig deeper. With each discovery, my anxiety spiked. There were hidden connections, cryptic clues. A name popped up: ghost from the past. A man who had a dark history. I felt the air tighten around me. I was in over my head. I wanted answers, but the more I unearthed, the more doubts emerged. Friends, even family, began casting sideways glances. The whispers turned into worried whispers about me. About Jessica's secret life. What had she been wrapped up in? Could this inheritance be a curse instead of a blessing? Questions piled up, heavy like stones. Betrayal lurked, lingering just out of sight, waiting to strike. Paranoia seeped into my bones. Who could I trust? I felt the tightness in my throat, the lump threatening to choke me. Would I ever discover the truth? Would the money bring us peace or plunge us deeper into chaos? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed were a blur. An amalgamation of grief and confusion. I moved mechanically through my routine, as if the world had closed in around me like a suffocating fog. Mornings turned into endless nights, my pillow damp with tears that would not cease. One cold afternoon, while sifting through Jessica's belongings, something strange struck me. It was her journal, soft leather, well-worn, pages filled with her neat handwriting. My breath hitched as I held it, a tangible connection to the daughter I'd lost. I flipped through the pages, each line a thread connecting me to her heart. In one entry dated just weeks before she passed, Jessica wrote about dreams and aspirations, about wanting to help people, about a mentor whose name appeared at the end, an enigmatic figure named Charles. There was a sense of urgency in her words, a plea almost. But another entry sent ice through my veins. In it, she had scribbled a warning about trusting the wrong people. My heart raced as I absorbed the words. Who was she referring to? The ink felt like a ghost, a shadow of a warning from beyond. Despite my anguish, hope flickered. Perhaps these clues could lead me closer to the truth. As days passed, whispers morphed into accusations. The stares from family members became daggers. You know, the type that chafe against deep wounds. Each conversation felt performative, shallow. I felt their judgment seeping into my skin. Every mention of the inheritance slung like a noose around my neck. Was I seen as a vulture, picking at my daughter's supposedly ill-gotten wealth? One evening, in a rare act of kindness, my neighbor Martha dropped by, her eyes soft and compassionate. She brought over a casserole, an old tradition birthed from sorrow and support. While I appreciated the gesture, the taste of grief lingered like bitter salt on my tongue. It was in the warmth of her kitchen that I felt my shoulders relax, ever so slightly. "How are you holding up?" she asked, concern etching her features. It was a simple question, yet a crack in my veneer of strength. "I don't know," I whispered, swallowing hard. "I'm trying to piece together her life, to understand why she had all this hidden from me." Martha reached out, squeezing my hand. "Whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone. We're all here for you." The sincerity in her voice wrapped around me, momentarily easing my bruised heart. But just as this flicker of comfort began to settle, the next morning brought a dark storm. I opened my front door to find an envelope slid awkwardly onto the mat. It was from a law firm addressed not to me, but to Jessica. The name on the letterhead was familiar: Charles, her mentor. My breath caught as I pulled it open, each word dancing like a noose tightening around my sanity. "We are sorry for your loss." It went on to indicate that a meeting was to take place to divulge further information regarding Jessica's inheritance. The date was set for just 5 days from now. A wave of nausea washed over me. Why would her mentor hold a meeting without me? Had she confided in him about me? Or had he been manipulating her? 1,000 questions raced through my mind, each spiraling deeper down a path I wasn't sure I wanted to tread. I felt the universe conspiring against me. The truth seemed just beyond my grasp, like the slippery edge of a dream, just out of reach. As night fell, I lay awake, the weight of the letter pressing down on my heart. A shift rippled through my thoughts. Had I stepped into a dark labyrinth, one woven by secrets that might unravel everything I thought I knew? Could Charles be the key, or was he a mere pawn in a larger game that I'd unknowingly stepped into? That night, a sudden noise stirred me from sleep. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number illuminated the dark. It read simply, "I know what happened to Jessica. Meet me tomorrow at the old cafe on Elm Street if you want answers." My heart raced, a mix of fear and hope flooding my veins. Was this the breakthrough I had been waiting for? Or a trap laid in shadows? With shaking hands, I gripped the phone as the screen faded to black. The road ahead twisted like a tempest, and I was caught in its center. Dread seeped into my bones as I paced the dimly lit room, the shadowy corners each holding whispers of doubt, danger, and desolation. My thoughts spiraled around the message like moths drawn to a flickering flame, tantalizing yet ominous. I kept replaying the words in my mind, trying to decipher their weight. What could this stranger know about Jessica's last days? Morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the chaos of my emotions. I felt strangely unmoored, caught between the fragile thread of hope that answered my question about Jessica's life, and the gnawing fear connected to meeting a stranger in a lonely cafe. The air felt thick with anticipation, and I wondered if I should take Martha's advice. I didn't need to face this alone. But who could I trust? I decided to confide in Martha again, needing her warmth and wisdom amidst the uncertainty. I found her in her garden, bent over lovingly tending to each blooming flower with delicate care, as if nurturing their life was integral to her own. I wondered if I would ever feel that level of tenderness again. "Martha," I called, my voice wavering as I approached her. She looked up, brushed her hands on her apron, and met my gaze with concern. "What is it, dear?" she asked, her eyes softening. "I received a message last night." I hesitated, swallowing hard. "Someone claims to know what happened to Jessica." Martha moved closer, her brow pinched with worry. "Do you think it's someone you can trust?" "I don't know," I admitted, feeling raw and exposed. "What if it's a trap? What if I'm being led further into darkness?" "Sometimes darkness leads us to light," she offered, her voice steady. "You have every right to seek the truth, but you must tread carefully. If you feel uncertain, consider bringing someone along. I can come with you." Her offer filled me with warmth, but a stubborn part of me resisted. Did I really want a witness to the heavy weight of my grief? "I appreciate it, Martha, but I think this is something I need to face myself. Just promise to call me if it feels like it's getting too dangerous. Okay? You're not alone in this, even if the shadows try to tell you otherwise." Her faith in me ignited a flicker of courage, but the thrill of confrontation gnawed at my gut. As the hour approached, I found myself standing in front of the old cafe, its windows fogged with warmth against the chilly day. I paused at the entrance, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. The weight of destiny tugged at my spirit, blurring the lines between past and present. Inside, the scents of roasted coffee and warm pastries embraced me, a fleeting comfort amidst my turmoil. I scanned the room, seeking the figure who promised answers but also uncertainty. Then I spotted Hema man with unkempt hair and eyes that pierced through the dim light, sitting in a corner booth. He looked up, a hint of recognition clearing the cloud of gloom on his features. "You came." His voice was raspy, layered with the weight of secrets and truths that had the potential to shatter the fragile fabric of my world. I slid into the seat opposite him, leveling my gaze with his. "What do you know?" The question tumbled out, desperate and demanding. His eyes softened for a moment, filled with a storm of emotions I couldn't quite decipher. Then he took a deep breath, and the world seemed to tilt dangerously on its axis. "It's not what I know, but what Jessica was trying to tell you." She was afraid. A chill shot through me, his expression heavy with unspoken truths. "Afraid of who?" "Of Charles," he replied slowly. "And of the people he brought into her life." Every nerve in my body tensed, a raw panic bubbling under the surface. "Why didn't she tell me?" "She tried," he said, leaning closer. "But she believed they were her friends, loyal and supportive." "It's complicated. There are layers I struggle to cut through." Just then, a sharp clang of a bell rang out, echoing in the cafe as the door swung open violently, gusts of wind spilling cold air into my sanctuary. My attention snapped to the entrance, where a tall figure stepped inside. "Charles." My heart stopped, the weight of betrayal staining the air thick between us. How had he found me? "Jessica's father," he said, his voice smooth but edged with an icy resolve. My pulse quickened, confusion and righteous fury intertwining as I noticed the tension in the stranger beside me. Before I could react, Charles' gaze fell on the man across from me, and a flicker of recognition ignited in his eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he hissed, a flash of danger threading through his casual demeanor. Panic rose in my chest like bile. The truths I had so desperately sought now hung precariously in the balance, and the ground beneath me felt treacherous. Just as I turned to ask the stranger what he knew, I caught sight of Martha standing just outside the cafe, worry etched across her face. The storm grew louder, and as everything happened in a blur of chaos, the computational certainty of my world began to unravel. The pieces of this dark puzzle slid further from my grasp, and I realized I had walked into a tempest I might not survive. The air was electric with tension as Charles stepped closer, his eyes narrowing like a predator assessing its prey. My instinct screamed for me to flee, to escape this trap I had unknowingly wandered into. "Are you here to discuss Jessica?" Charles asked, his tone deceptively calm but laced with an undercurrent of threat. I felt a surge of dread wash over me. How much did he know? I turned helplessly towards the stranger, my life now hanging in the balance of words that could cut deeper than any knife. "Who is he?" I whispered, desperation creeping into my voice. The man opposite me, with his eyes like stormy seas, held my gaze steady. "I'm someone who cared about her and sensed something was off," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper but resonating with urgency. "We have to get you out of here." As Charles glared at the stranger, the cafe felt as if it were closing in around me. The comforting aroma of coffee transformed into a suffocating haze, swallowing my panic while amplifying my fear. "You don't understand," I told them both, voice wavering. "He can't know I'm here." Without warning, Martha pushed through the door, her face flushed but determined. "There you are," she exclaimed, her warmth wrapping around me like a shield. "It's time to go." "Stay out of this, Martha," Charles snapped, the calm in his voice shattering like glass. His attention shifted to me, an intimidating grin curling at the corners of his mouth. "You trust her? After everything? You were so blinded by her lies, by her so-called friends. Look where it got you." In that moment, a small spark ignited in my heart. The truth was my lifeline, and I felt it urging me to resist, to not let fear suffocate my determination. "You don't get to speak about Jessica like that," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "She was afraid of you." He advanced a step further, and the stranger shifted beside me, positioning himself protectively. "I think it's time to leave," he murmured, and I nodded, my breath catching as I felt the urgency in his words. Martha reached for my arm, her grip fierce. "You're coming with me. Now." Just then, a commotion erupted behind Charles. A couple of coffee cups spilled, people muttering, and a loud thud as someone bumped into a table. The distraction split the tension in the room enough for us to slide past him, hearts racing as we stormed out into the cold afternoon. "But you don't understand," Charles shouted, his voice laced with fury. "You're making a mistake. You need to know the truth." As we raced down the street, I cast a glance backward, catching a glimpse of his enraged silhouette before the cafe door swung shut behind us. Martha pulled me closer, navigating the crowded sidewalk with an urgency that made my heart pound. "What were you thinking, confronting him like that?" she scolded gently, concern etched across her brow as we stepped further away from the cafe. "You don't know what he's capable of." I couldn't let him twist Jessica's memory like that, I choked out, my throat tight with a blend of grief and righteous indignation. "But he knows something. I could feel it. I have to find out what it is." The stranger fell into step beside us, uncertain yet resolute. "You're safer with us," he said, his voice soothing. "Let's find a secure place to talk. I can help you." With every step, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on me, but amid the crushing darkness, a flicker of hope ignited. "Who are you?" I finally asked, directing my question at the man who had stepped into my life so suddenly. "How do you know Jessica?" He hesitated, the shadows in his eyes flickering momentarily like a flame eager to be unleashed. "My name is Lucas, and I am her brother." The revelation hit me like a tidal wave, a mix of shock and confusion swirling chaotically in my mind. "What?" My mouth fell open, the significance of this truth anchoring in my chest, heavy and disorienting. "But how?" I stammered, piecing together fragments of conversations, family, a life that I thought I had known. "Jessica kept it hidden," he explained, his voice heavy with sorrow. "She feared what Charles would do if he found out. But she reached out to me for help." Before his words faltered, and the grief in his expression mirrored my own. As the truth settled into the pit of my stomach, a chilling awareness descended. Now, with both Charles and a new connection to Jessica's past, I felt the walls closing in once more. "Where do we go from here?" I asked, fear mingling with a burning desire for answers. Lucas' eyes met mine, determination ignited behind the storm. "We expose Charles and everything he's been hiding. But first we've got to be careful. He's not the only one who knows we're onto him." I nodded, the road stretching before us fraught with uncertainty, shadows lurking at every turn. But the flicker of hope, the possibility of uncovering the truth, seemed worth the risk. And as I took my first steps alongside Martha and Lucas, new fear gripped my heart. I felt it, ominous and heavy. The truth I sought was only the beginning of a dark journey, one that promised to unveil horrors I could scarcely imagine. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an amber hue over the bustling streets as we navigated through the throngs of people. Each step felt weighted, like I was trudging through quicksand, and I could sense the world around me pulsating with life, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. Lucas walked alongside me, his presence strangely grounding yet charged with an unfamiliar energy. Martha seemed to be 2 steps ahead, her eyes darting around vigilant. "Where do we go?" I whispered, though part of me dreaded hearing the answer. Lucas exhaled slowly, leading us toward a narrow alleyway that veered off the main road. "We need a place to gather our thoughts, somewhere away from prying eyes." He paused before he continued, glancing back at Martha. "She might try to reach you again, so we should keep our phones off." A wave of anxiety washed over me, but I knew deep down it was the right call. I flipped my phone into silent mode, almost reluctantly, as if severing my last connection to the outside world. As we turned the corner into the alley, the noise of the city muffled, replaced by a disquieting stillness. My heart raced, my mind a turbulent sea of questions and doubts. "What does Charles know?" I asked suddenly, breaking the silence that felt stifling. Lucas' jaw tightened, his expression darkening. "More than we think, I suspect. He's always had a grip over Jessica. I couldn't protect her then, but now it's different. We can't let him keep winning." I shivered at his words, recognizing the fear cloaked in his determination. The thought of Charles wielding power over someone I loved, someone I was trying to honor, threatened to suffocate me. But how do we even start? I don't know how to fight someone like him. "There are ways," Lucas assured me. "We'll find out exactly what he's been hiding. But for now we need to lay low." He stopped, scanning the area before leading us deeper into the alley. "There's a small cafe up ahead that Jessica used to like. It should be safe enough for now." "Safe?" Martha echoed skeptically, her brow furrowed. He might be looking for us even now, that he won't find us in the dark, Lucas replied. But I caught a brief flash of fear in his eyes. It startled me. This man, who claimed to be Jessica's brother, was just as vulnerable as I felt, and it was a poignant reminder of how high the stakes had become. As we slowly approached the cafe, I felt an unexpected warmth enveloping me. The kind of comfort that made me realize I wasn't completely alone. Jessica's memory surged within me, a steady reminder of my purpose. I needed to honor her, and that flicker of hope grew brighter as I saw Lucas, a piece of her legacy inside. The air was rich with the scent of pastries and coffee, a familiar welcome that felt at odds with the heaviness in my heart. We settled into a secluded corner, the dim lighting a cocoon against the chaos outside. Do you really believe we can expose Charles? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, filled with a desperation I could not hide. I do, Lucas replied, leaning forward, a fierce determination sparking in his stormy eyes. But it's a risk. We need to gather evidence, talk to those who knew Jessica, and build a case. There are people who will support you. You just have to trust them. Martha shifted in her seat, her hands clasped tightly under the table. And what if Charles gets to them first? What if he decides to play dirty? I swallowed hard, the truth of her words igniting a deep-rooted fear. Then we have to act fast. At that moment, Lucas' phone buzzed against the table, the sound jarring against the quiet tension. He grabbed it and glanced at the screen, his expression changing from determination to dread. It's Charles, he muttered, urgency flooding his voice. Answer it, Martha urged, her brow tightening. No. This could be a trap, I insisted, a strange mix of fear and protective instincts urging me to keep him safe. We can't risk it. But Lucas raised his hand, stilling our frantic energy. We might get something we need, he said, his voice steady but low. I have to answer. As he reluctantly accepted the call, my heart raced, every muscle in my body tensed. I could barely hear what Charles was saying on the other end, but the seriousness of the situation hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and fraught with unseen dangers. Where are you? Charles' voice sliced through, smooth yet threatening. You think you can run away and hide from me? You're making a grave mistake, Lucas. My breath caught in my throat. Charles seemed to know not just that we were together but that we were actively plotting against him. No, don't tell him where we are, I whispered urgently to Lucas, but it was too late. Lucas steadied himself, his jaw clenched. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Charles, he said, voice firm but trembling. You've lost control over Jessica's life. You won't win this time. The line went silent, but I could feel the tension crackling in the air, sharp and tangible. My heart thundered as I realized that we had stepped into a volatile game of nerve, one in which even the slightest misstep could spell disaster. Lucas, what now? I asked, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. He hung up, eyes stormy. While I was gone, Charles made sure everyone was in his pocket. He knows things about Jessica's past, things that could destroy her legacy, things we need to uncover. Just then, the door of the cafe swung open, and I turned in time to see a figure slip inside, eyes scanning the room. My breath hitched as I recognized the gray-haired figure, agents of shadow and circumstances I hardly understood. It was Sylvia, the private investigator Jessica had turned to for help so few months ago. Jessica was right to trust me, she said, her voice carrying the weight of secrets untold. And for a moment, as her eyes locked onto mine, the flicker of hope extended its roots deeper, wrapping around the fear that threatened to consume me. But before I could ask her what she knew, a startling realization pierced through my thoughts. The truth was no longer just a desire. It had become a perilous mission, and we were standing on the brink of a revelation that could change everything if we survived. As the silence wrapped around us like a shroud, I felt an uneasy calm settle in the cafe. Sylvia, her presence both grounding and unnerving, moved closer. The brief moment of connection I had felt now swelled into something heavier, a link that thrummed with the questions that had haunted us since Jessica's death. Jessica needed help, Sylvia began, her voice a measured whisper. But there are things she never had the chance to reveal, secrets buried deep. What kind of secrets? I asked, the urgency in my tone slicing through the atmosphere. The stakes felt impossibly high, the desire for answers warring with the fear of what those answers could unleash. Charles, Sylvia responded, her gaze shifting toward the alley outside as if the mere name could conjure him from the shadows. He's been manipulating circumstances, using people. Jessica was digging into a case that went much deeper than her inheritance. She was entangled in something dangerous as she spoke. Lucas clenched his fists, the tension in the room thickening. "What are you saying?" he urged, leaning closer. "What was she investigating?" "Something about a missing trust fund money that was misappropriated, perhaps linked to Charles. He needs it kept quiet." But Jessica, she was ready to expose the truth. Each word from Sylvia felt like a revelation. The truth painting shades of Jessica's bravery that I had yet to grasp. There was power in knowing she had fought against the very forces that sought to bury her legacy, but it also anchored me to a darker reality. "Why didn't she tell us?" Martha breathed, her voice quaking with the storm of emotions that had been swirling around us since we stepped into this chaotic journey. "Because she knew how deep it was, how dangerous," Sylvia replied solemnly. "The further she pushed, the closer she got to a truth that would have put her in jeopardy. It's why I kept my distance." But she hesitated, the weight of her own secrets pressing down on her words. "I wish I hadn't." "What do we do now?" I asked, my heart racing with the fresh wave of urgency that surged through me. We couldn't just sit back now that we had a semblance of the truth. The darkness that had engulfed Jessica's life for so long seemed to be reaching out for us. "I need to gather evidence on Charles," Sylvia said firmly, determination igniting in her eyes. "I can help you connect the dots, but you must be cautious. Charles won't take this lightly. He'll come after anyone who threatens his empire." Just then, a jarring noise erupted from the cafe's entrance, causing all of us to flinch. A pair of unfriendly faces stepped inside, men in dark suits, their presence imposing and filled with an air of authority. I felt my breath hitch in my throat and panic flare in my chest. "Everyone stay calm," Lucas instructed, but I could see the urgency painting his expression. "We can't let them see us." At my mind raced with options, but none felt viable. This was no longer just about honor or uncovering a truth for Jessica. It had become a physical battle, a fight for our very safety and a race against time. The men moved through the cafe, their eyes scanning the patrons dispassionately. My instincts screamed at me to hide, to shrink into the shadows and hope they passed over us. Lucas nodded toward a door behind the counter. "The staff entrance was a lifeline we could capitalize on. Go," he urged, pulling me and Martha toward the doorway. As we slipped into the narrow passage, panic flared with each beat of my heart. The muffled chatter of the cafe faded into the distance as we rounded corners in darkness, disoriented yet desperate for escape. Suddenly, we emerged into the rear alley, where the world felt like a parallel universe haunted by what we were fleeing yet filled with the electric pulse of possibility. I turned back to look for Sylvia, but she hadn't followed. The heavy weight of responsibility fell on me. She was risking her safety to gather evidence while we slipped away. "She's getting herself into danger," I muttered, conflicted by the urgency of our escape and the guilt that flooded me. "Smart move on her part," Lucas replied, his hand gripping my arm reassuringly. "She's seen what Charles is capable of. Now we follow through with what Jessica intended." Before I could respond, I noticed a flicker of movement in the shadows of the alley. My heart plummeted as a voice hushed, yet accusatory, called out, "You thought you could escape? You don't even know what's coming for you." My pulse quickened, and the ground beneath me felt unsteady. There, silhouetted against the dim, flickering light of an overhead bulb, was a familiar figure. Jessica's old friend, Ethan, had emerged from the shadows, his expression a mixture of caution and dread. "You don't understand the choices you're making," he continued, stepping into the light. "You're in over your heads." "Ethan?" I called, bewildered by his sudden appearance. "What are you doing here?" His eyes darted nervously to where we had just come from. "I came to warn you. Charles isn't just looking for Joha knows everything." A profound sense of dread washed over me, the truth of his revelation landing heavily in my chest. "What do you mean?" But before Ethan could explain, a low rumble echoed in the distance, a sound that carried dread and certainty, the unmistakable growl of an approaching engine. I felt the heat of fear rise, the realization that we were no longer just fighting for answers, but possibly for our lives. I turned to Lucas, our shared anxiety knitting our fates closer together in that moment. "What do we do now?" And just as the realization settled, one simple truth ripped through the remaining fragments of my security: the chase was only just beginning, and there were forces at play that threatened to unravel everything we held dear. We stood frozen. The distant sound of the engine grew louder, a menacing harbinger of what was to come. The alley felt claustrophobic, the walls closing in as the gravity of Ethan's warning sank in. Charles wasn't just a shadowy figure who lingered in the background of Jessica's life, he was a threat that now loomed over us. "What do you know?" I asked urgently, stepping closer to Ethan, desperate to glean any insight that could help us. His face was pale, the weight of knowledge etched in the lines of his expression. Jessica didn't just stumble into trouble, she uncovered something explosive. I thought I could protect her, but she was determined. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder, paranoia pulsing through him as the rumble of the engine came closer. "Now you need to leave. Go somewhere Charles can't find you." "Leave?" Martha echoed, incredulity bleeding into her voice. "We can't just run away. We're not done fighting. Jessica deserves justice." Ethan's shoulders slumped under the weight of her words, revealing a vulnerability that I had never seen before. "You don't understand what he's capable of, what he's already done. I've seen too many lives shattered because of him." He paused, the words hanging heavily in the air. "I can't let you become part of that darkness." The engine finally rounded the corner, its sound unmistakable as a black SUV roared into view, headlights slicing through the gloom. My heart raced, instinct compelling me to act. There was no way we could cower away now, not when we were this close. "He's coming for us," I said, my voice urgent yet trembling with fear. "We need a plan." Lucas stepped forward, eyes focused and determined. "We can't just stand here and wait to be caught. There has to be a way out." Ethan's expression morphed into one of fierce determination. "There's a way, but it's not safe. You'll have to trust me." He gestured to a narrow passage that snaked deeper back into the darkness of the alley, dimly lit and spilling into the unknown. Reluctantly, I nodded a small acceptance of his authority in this chaotic moment. "Let's go." We slipped into the passage, the sounds of the cafe and the rumbling SUV fading behind us. The air was thicker here, carrying the scent of damp concrete and the hint of rain to come. Fear mingled with adrenaline, pushing me forward as we plunged further into the obscurity. "Keep moving," Ethan urged, his voice barely above a whisper. But as we ventured deeper, I caught a flicker of doubt cross his face. "We need to be stealthy. Charles has eyes everywhere." "Then tell us what we're up against," I insisted, the weight of unknowing gnawing at me like a relentless pest. "What did you hide from Jessica?" "It's not something easy to explain," he shot back, urgency washing over him. "But Charles is connected. He's in with people who will stop at nothing to protect their interests. When Jessica started digging, they became aware of her intentions. Off all of you." A guttural growl echoed behind us, forcing us all to pause. The SUV had stopped. Voices carved through the night air, probing and searching. My heart pounded in synchrony with the terror swelling inside me. Ethan scrambled to the side, beckoning for us to follow. "This way. Quickly." Time suspended as we hurried through the darkness, my thoughts racing as fast as my feet. Charles' relentless pursuit was more than just a personal vendetta. It felt like a sinister web encircling us, tightening with every moment. We finally reached the mouth of another alley, and Ethan halted, the sweat glistening on his brow. "We need to split up. They'll be looking for 3 people. I can cause a distraction." "Distraction?" I repeated, my stomach lurching at the thought. "You might get yourself hurt." He shot me a look fierce and sincere. "If they find you, they won't think twice about taking you down. It's not just about you anymore, it's about protecting Jessica's truth. You have to share what you know." Lucas nodded, inserting himself into the moment. "He's right. If Charles is the mastermind, then we need a strategy that gives us an advantage. Well, rendezvous back at my place." A moment hung heavy. With the magnitude of what was at stake, I felt raw emotion swell within, an unbearable cocktail of grief, anger, and urgency regulating our decisions. "Promise me you'll keep fighting," Ethan implored, locking his eyes with mine, seeking a commitment that transcended this moment. "Don't let his darkness steal what Jessica wanted to accomplish." With a nod, I turned to Lucas and Martha as they readied themselves for the split. The connection felt electric, a bond forged in fear, courage, and a shared loss. "Well, see you soon," I said, my voice trembling but resolute. As we slipped into the shadows of the alley, Ethan bolted in the opposite direction, as the night swallowed him whole, his silhouette disappearing like smoke. But with every step, a nagging feeling crept back. Ina thought that gnawed at my resolve. What if this was only the beginning? Then I remembered the warning. Charles knows everything. A sickening feeling coiled in my stomach, an implication that sent shivers down my spine. If Ethan knew, then we were far more exposed than I had ever realized. Just as I turned back to Lucas and Martha, a haunting realization flooded my senses, a chilling premonition that shattered my guarded hope. What if Charles had been watching us this entire time? As the echoes of distant sirens wove into the wind, indicating wheels already in motion, I felt the first real tendrils of fear creep up my spine. Our journey was perilous, and the stakes were higher than I could have fathomed. We were in the center of a storm, and unfortunately, I was starting to understand what it meant to be caught in its eye. The shadows seemed to dance around us as we navigated through the maze of alleys, the faint sound of sirens pulsing in the distance like a heartbeat. I glanced at Lucas and Martha, their faces taut with determination and fear, a mirror of my own inner turmoil. "Where do we go now?" Martha asked, her voice strained as we paused to catch our breath. "Let's follow this path," Lucas suggested, his hand pointing toward a flickering light at the end of the alley. "It might lead to somewhere safer." "I wish we had more information." "Me too," I replied quietly, feeling the weight of uncertainty like an anchor around my heart. Ethan could be in real danger out there, and here we are stuck in this darkness. The flickering light grew closer, illuminating the damp cobblestones beneath our feet. Hope hovered in the air like a flickering lantern, yet the reality of our situation clouded any joy that dared to surface. We were running from a man who had the power to crush everything we held dear. "Martha," I said, suddenly realizing the depth of her steadfastness, "I need you to promise me something. If things get too dangerous, you keep going, okay? No matter what." Her eyes widened, a flash of anger melting into sorrow. "You think I would leave you behind? I know we're scared, but together we're stronger. Jessica would want us to fight for her, not run away." Tears threatened to breach my resolve, but I blinked them back before they fell. "You're right. She deserves our fight." At that moment we stepped under the light, revealing a narrow crevice leading toward an old warehouse. The dim glow spilled from its cracked windows, a haven amid the gloom. Lucas pushed open a rusted door. It creaked ominously as it swung wide, revealing a dusty expanse of forgotten machinery. "Do you think anyone's here?" Lucas whispered, his eyes scanning the shadows, eyes filled with suspicion but also a flicker of hope that I shrugged, uncertainty twisting in my gut. "If anyone is, they're likely to be friendly." We entered the warehouse, the air thick with dust and abandoned memories. The remnants of a life once lived lingered like whispers in the corners. Echoes of our footsteps filled the vast space as we tiptoed deeper, tension coiling tightly within me. "Look," Martha called from the far end of the room, pointing at a barricade made of crates stacked unevenly, a makeshift wall hiding something valuable. "What's behind there?" As we approached cautiously, a door swung ajar. The sound startled me, and instinctually I stepped back, my mind racing. Could it be a trap? Only one way to find out, Lucas reassured. With a nod I approached the crates. As I pulled them aside, the unmistakable thud of something heavy fell behind the door. I flung it open, revealing a hidden office cluttered with papers and a flickering computer screen. My breath caught in my throat. An overwhelming rush of dread and disbelief washed over me. Scattered documents bore Jessica's name. "Why would they leave this here?" I murmured, scanning the haphazard assortment of leaves, the notes, legal documents, and sketches surrounding a name I suddenly recognized. "It's Charles' name. He's tied to everything." Lucas stepped in closer, catching a glimpse of the encryptions and markings that seemed cryptic yet familiar. "Look at this," he pointed. "This isn't just paperwork. These are transcripts from her investigation." Martha leaned over my shoulder, and I could feel her body tense by my side. "What if these could help us?" she whispered, a sliver of hope threading through the chaos. Even as we pieced together fragments of Jessica's relentless pursuit for justice, the dread of our situation loomed heavily upon us. Amid the clatter of papers, I caught sight of an envelope addressed to me. My heart raced. How could this be? "No, it can't be." My voice trembled as I opened the envelope cautiously, an unsteady hand shaking slightly. Inside was a single sheet of paper and an unfamiliar, tiny key that jingled like a warning bell. My heart began to race as I read the letter, words striking another blow to my already battered spirit. "Dear, I've put you on a dangerous path. If you're reading this, it means Charles is aware of your footsteps. You must act fast, the clock is ticking. Use this key to unlock what I've hidden away. It's the only way to protect you, to protect everyone. Trust no one. Cold dread swept over me, as dread formed in the pit of my stomach. Who had sent this? How did they know I would find it? Lucas, Martha, listen, this isn't just about us. There's something I wasn't prepared for. The weight of Jessica's past loomed heavy, but accompanied by a sense of urgency. I was being pulled into a conflict deeper than I had imagined. Footsteps echoed in the distance, jolting me from my thoughts. We're not alone anymore. Adrenaline surged through me. We need to leave. Now, I urged, already sensing the encroaching threat. As we turned to make our escape, my mind raced not just with survival, but the tormenting question that occupied every inch of my thoughts. What had Jessica discovered that might endanger us all? Outside, as the door swung shut behind us, the weight of shadows closed in once again. Each of us clinging tightly to the dim thread of hope we had carved in this nightmarish landscape. But a fierce foreboding lodged itself deep in my chest. Our journey was just beginning, and in the depths of my heart, something told me worse was yet to come. As we dashed out of the warehouse, the chill of the night air struck us like a slap, heightening the urgency coursing through our veins. The flickering remnants of hope clashed violently with the dread creeping in my gut, each step pounding louder than the last, resonating with my racing heart. Where do we go now? Lucas panted, glancing over his shoulder like a hunted animal. The streets felt oppressively dark, each alley seemingly leading to more than just shadows. We need to find a place to regroup, Martha suggested breathlessly, pulling her jacket tight around her, her expression a mosaic of fear and resolve. Somewhere safe. With no clear destination, we plunged into the maze of alleys once more, keeping our voices hushed, our eyes sharp. I clutched the envelope tightly, the weight of its implications pressing into my palm. Who knew what sort of Pandora's box we had opened? Those pages could set everything in motion. Yet, the thought of what Jessica had unearthed was a labyrinth of terror that my mind wasn't yet ready to navigate. As we reached the mouth of another alley, I caught a glimpse of something glimmering against the cobblestones, a broken mirror, fractured into 1,000 pieces, reflecting our fragmented lives. Did you guys see that? I stammered, light flickering in my chest despite the surrounding dread. What? Lucas turned, his brow furrowing. It was a mundane object, yet at that moment it felt like a harbinger of something bigger, something waiting to happen. Never mind, let's keep moving, I urged, shaking off the thought. I could feel the walls closing in. It was as if even the universe was conspiring against my sense of safety. We continued, winding through the alleys until we stumbled upon an inconspicuous cafe. The faint light oozing from the windows offered a false sense of security. I pushed the door open, the soft chime of the bell echoing faintly, a reminder of normalcy we hadn't experienced in far too long. Inside, the warmth enveloped us, but the patrons, a scattering of faces cloaked in their own worries, cast quick glances our way. The air was thick with the aroma of coffee and baked goods, but none of that could settle the storm swirling in my chest. We made our way to a table in the corner, a growing sense of familiarity and safety mingling uneasily with the threats outside. Oh, we have anyone we can trust? Lucas asked, staring into his untouched cup of coffee. I thought I did, I whispered, remembering the betrayal that had cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Charles was an enemy I never anticipated. Martha leaned forward, her voice barely above a murmur. We have each other, right? That's something. Feeling her unwavering belief lift my spirit momentarily, I managed a weak smile. Just as I opened my mouth to add to her sentiment, a commotion erupted from the front of the cafe. The door swung open, and a figure stepped inside, a strange yet familiar face that sent chills scuttling down my spine. Benjamin? I gasped, recognition washing over me like a powerful wave. He was the last person I expected to see, Jessica's estranged business partner, the man who had cut ties as soon as trouble brewed, now standing there, eyes darting from our table to the window, a ripple of dread vibrating through the air. Listen, he said, his voice low and urgent as he approached us. You have to leave. They're looking for you. Who's looking for us? I demanded, anger flaring. You disappeared when we needed you most. I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't explain everything here, he pleaded, his brow glistening with perspiration. There's a bounty on your heads. You need to trust me. There's something I have to show you. Lucas' expression darkened. Why should we trust you now? Because your lives depend on it, he shot back, anxiety tightening his features. Walls have ears and I can't tell you everything right here. Just come with me. My instincts screamed at me, yet a reluctant thread of curiosity began to weave its way through my fear. This was it. Another twist in a journey that seemed bound to spiral endlessly. Do you think he's lying? Martha whispered, squeezing my hand, searching my eyes for assurance. I don't know, I replied, torn between the instinct to flee and the desire to uncover more about what awaited us just beyond the cafe doors. Then, just as we rose to follow him, the bell chimed again. Instinct screamed for us to duck, but it was too late. The figure that entered this time was clad in black, a familiarity simmering not from recognition, but from terror, the embodiment of everything that had pursued us since we stumbled into our own unraveling mystery. I froze, a new wave of dread crashing over me. Run! I shouted, sensing the threat snapping tight around us like a noose. We scattered, but in that moment, my heart sank deeper as the truth settled quietly and calculatingly. It felt like the walls were closing in. And in that instant I began to realize nothing about this night would turn out as expected. My heart raced as we bolted through the cafe, panic surging, the world outside morphing into a blur of shadows and chaos. Benjamin's urgency had compelled us forward, but now amorphous dread blanketed our thoughts. I barely registered the clatter of chairs as they fell behind us, the angry shouts of patrons morphing into a symphony of chaos. This way! Lucas yelled, darting toward the side exit, urging us into the syrupy darkness of an alley. We collided in a heap, breaths ragged. In that frenetic moment, a haunting realization settled over me. The chase was no longer a mere pursuit, it was a crescendo building toward calamity. What is going on? I gasped, clawing to make sense of the spiraling chaos. There's no time, Benjamin insisted, pulling us further into the recesses of the alley. We need to separate. It's our only chance. But anguish bubbled up in my throat. What if something happens? What if we never find each other again? It was a truth I couldn't ignore. In this tempest of shadows, the fear of losing them threatened to break me, especially after everything we had fought through and uncovered together. Trust me, Benjamin said, his voice a calm amidst the storm, eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that felt both foreign and reassuring. I'm doing this to protect you all. We can't let them catch us together. Before I could argue further, he shoved the tiny key into my palm, his grip lingering for a moment. You need this more than anything. It's tied to what Jessica discovered. The way he spoke made it clear that information hung just out of reach, yet he couldn't disclose it now. Where do we meet? I asked, my voice trembling. Follow the old train tracks to the abandoned mill, Lucas interjected, glancing back with urgency. It used to be a safe spot for me and Jessica. Benjamin nodded, a flicker of recognition lighting his features. We'll meet there. Just trust your instincts. They won't hesitate to hurt you. The speed at which he spoke evoked a mixture of faith and desperation, urging us forward despite the rising tide of doubt. With a lingering look of reassurance, we turned to bolt into the depths of the night, our paths diverging into uncertainty. Be careful! I shouted, but the words dissolved into the heavy night air, swallowed by our fear-driven escape. It wasn't long before the grating sound of footsteps echoed behind us. My pulse quickened, instinctively pushing me to run faster as dread clawed at my thoughts, urging me to drive forward into the unknown, toward the fate that awaited. The night felt suffocating, shadows twisting into dark specters that haunted the corners of my vision, each breath filled with the weight of uncertainty. As the abandoned train tracks came into view, my hope flickered desperately. We sprinted forward, eager to find solace in their solace. There! Martha pointed to the rusty metal beams, their decay a testament to battles long past. If we follow these, we'll get to the mill. We hurried down the tracks, the haunting noise of city life fading into the background, replaced by the crunch of gravel underfoot and the soft rustle of leaves. Yet an unshakable weight nestled in my chest like a stone. Finally, the silhouette of the old mill loomed ahead, its structure precarious yet familiar. As we approached, the dilapidated facade evoked memories of better days where laughter reigned and future dreams were afloat in Jessica's presence. Lucas reached for the door, always the first to lead the way, but hesitation pulsed in my veins. Do you think it's safe? The question sprung unfiltered. He turned to me, forcing a reassuring smile, despite the vulnerability radiating from his body. It's the only chance we have. I hesitated a heartbeat longer before stepping inside. The dull creak of the door echoing like a whisper of fate. Cobwebs hung like shrouds, remnants of what once was. The air was thick with dust, yet amidst the forlorn atmosphere, I thought I caught a faint trace of something. Hoped that we should look around, Martha suggested, eyes wide with determination. We might find something. Jessica left behind. As we split up, my heart raced with adrenaline and trepidation. My fingers skimmed against surfaces layered with memories. I felt the ghosts of what was interwoven with every part of this place. What happened here, Jess? I whispered, wishing fervently for just one more moment with her. Suddenly, a light shone through a cracked window, illuminating a stack of boxes shoved against the wall. Curiosity spurred me forward. I knelt and peeled back the top box, gasping as paper spilled out a chaotic medley of notes, photographs, and documents. Guys, come look, I called out, excitement igniting within me. Lucas and Martha rushed over, eyes widening as they joined me in my discovery. As this, Lucas murmured, lifting a photograph displaying a younger Jessica with a group of friends, surrounded by eager smiles. But something about it felt off. In the far corner of the image, a shadowed figure loomed ominously, a presence that sent chills running up my spine. Who is that? Martha asked, peering closer, her eyes narrowing. I don't know, I said, dread wrapping around us again. But we need to find out. My hands shook as I rifled through the documents, each sheet revealing snippets of Jessica's investigation, pieces of a puzzle slowly taking shape. It was then that my eyes fell upon a familiar name at the bottom of one document, Charles. It outlined a network much deeper than mere inheritance. It spoke of embezzlement, betrayal, dark connections that spiraled widely. My heart constricted with every detail. The world Jessica had fought to unveil was perilous and treacherous. Jessica had a real fight on her hands, I said, swallowing hard against the rising panic. Look here, Lucas pointed to a scribbled note amidst the documents. She wanted to expose him. She had proof. It has to be here, I added quickly, a sense of urgency igniting within me. There must be more. Suddenly, a clang echoed from outside the mill. A rush of terror swept through me, the darkness threatening to overtake. They found us. I spat, adrenaline surging as I pushed to my feet. Quick, we need to get out, Lucas insisted, pulling us toward the back exit just as the door we entered burst open violently. They're here. The doorway stood at the forefront of dread, a silhouette blocking our exit. My heart raced as I recognized the figure looming against the moonlight, Charles, staring us down coldly, the calm of a predator preparing to pounce. I didn't expect people to come crawling back, he spoke, his voice smooth like silk yet filled with sinister intent. But I guess you're hoping for a last-minute reckoning. Panic surged through me as I grasped the papers, shoving them into my jacket. The shadows in the mill felt alive, breathing alongside my fear. And with each flicker of the lamp above, I felt our options dwindle. What do you want? Lucas boldly asked, stepping between me and Charles, a bulwark of defiance. Why, nothing more than to ensure what belongs to me remains untouched, Charles answered, eyes narrowing like a hawk measuring its prey. You have no idea what you're meddling with, I know you're a liar, I shouted, defiance simmering just beneath my surface. Jessica tried to expose you. We won't let you destroy her memory. A flicker of irritation passed over his features, quickly replaced by a chilling smile. Memories are fleeting, my dear. The past is best left buried. My heart raced as he took a step forward, but before he could advance, a cacophony of noise erupted beyond the entrance, the sound of screeching tires and various voices rising sharply. That'll be my insurance, he said coolly, eyes glinting with malevolence. I advise you to drop whatever you think you're holding on to before you end up like your precious Jessica. I faltered, realization crashing over me like an icy tide. This was more than just a game. It was a battle for survival. And it was written all over his face. Charles would stop at nothing to keep his secrets and his empire intact. Let's go, Martha shouted suddenly, urgency in her voice, yanking me back to the present. The way out. I stumbled toward the back entrance. Lucas and Martha close behind me, hearts pounding, breaths echoing our desperation. But Charles wasn't done. You can run, but you can't hide. You are already tangled in my web, and I will make sure you pay. As we sprinted through the soft dirt behind the mill, A part of me held onto the lingering dread, the certainty that we had entered a battle that could never truly end. Racing into the night, air thick with anxiety, the weight of the chase hung heavy over us, and somewhere deep down, I knew one essential truth. This wasn't just about finding answers for Jessica anymore. It was about survival, a fight for our lives against a darkness that threatened to swallow us whole. But as the fractures of chaos echoed around us, a silver lining glimmered beneath the ruin. A glimmer screamed, quiet yet filled with possibility. We had come too far to fall now. Our resolve burned brighter against the overwhelming storm, and whatever lay ahead, we were willing to risk everything to honor Jessica. With hearts racing, we didn't look back. We could never stop running until we exposed the truth, even if it cost us everything we held dear. The air crackled with uncertainty, shadows chasing behind, and together we dashed forward, desperate for liberation, seeking light in the midst of encroaching darkness. Every heartbeat echoed our fragile hope, and every breath held the power to weave a narrative anew. Finally, we took our first step into the unknown. But in that moment, just as we crossed the threshold of the fated mill, I felt the warmth of incandescent truth swell within me. Whatever challenges awaited us, I knew we would face them together. Even if the shadows lingered dangerously close, fate forged a bond beneath the cry of chaos, imperfect yet unbreakable, unyielding in the quest for justice. And as we breached the threshold into the unknown, a lone haunting thought tethered itself to my heart, weighing me down yet propelling me forward. I will not let Jessica's legacy fade away into darkness. We will fight and we will rise. In that moment of resolve, I emerged with my heart ablaze, determined to seek justice not only for Jessica but for myself. Because sometimes to find victory, we first must confront our ghosts. Only then could we begin to heal.